Hi, Julius, and welcome. I'd also like to welcome everyone as I launch the In Conversation with FKM, a pet project of mine that I've been looking to start off for a very long time. And I'm very excited that I get to share this with a very special guest, an individual who I had the pleasure of working with and knowing. So I'm so happy that I get to share this moment with you, Julius. Julius is a business leader, a thought leader, a seasoned training facilitator, as well as a mentor. He holds memberships with the South African Institute of Chartered Accountants, the Institute of Directors South Africa, and the Institute of Internal Auditors South Africa. He's also the CEO of the IIA and chairperson of the Public Sector Audit Committee Forum. He's the outgoing senior executive public sector at SAICA, and there he was responsible for promoting the value of the chartered accountancy profession to members and stakeholders in the public sector, as well as a variety of thought leadership and technical excellence in the areas of public finance management, reporting, assurance, and government. He's also part of the Pan-African Federation of Accountants, and he's been nominated member of the Interim Oversight Board for the African Professionalization Initiative. He also is a donor at Save the Children South Africa and the Youth Citizens Action Program. He does motivational speaking for matriculants and graduates, and he's also a volunteer advisory board member for NPO, which provides extra classes to learners in township schools. And with that, very warm welcome, Julius, and thank you for taking the time to embark on this journey with me.
Yeah, no, thank you, and congratulations, and thanks for hosting me.
Great. And with that, let us start, because I think, you know, the youngsters that I work with and even my audience, they were quite excited, Julius. I never expected so many questions to come through for you. So we won't waste any time and dig right in so we can unpack some of these topics. Before we start, I mean, we all know, Julius, I've given a brief about you, but I really wanted to understand a bit more about you, your journey. Who is Julius? You know, what was your upbringing like, and how has that evolved from the then to the now?
Yeah, I think Julius is a very typical young boy with dreams and ambitions. And yeah, when I grew up, I've always believed there was a bigger thing for me. You know, I could do more. My background did not help because it did not align to who I thought I was. So I grew up in a very poor background, but my mind never allowed it to adapt to poverty, which is something I've always said to people. You need to just continue reminding yourself that this is a temporary situation, and I think my brain did that very well. So yeah, I was raised, my mother was a domestic worker and my dad was working as a gardener. So it was a typical struggle upbringing of a township or rural boy. And that's where I came from. And then I was very lucky to get a bursary when I finished matric because of the good results I had, which got me into the opportunity to study an accounting degree at the University of the Western Cape, and then did my articles at Nkongi, where I then yeah, otherwise all that kind of progressed to where we are today. But yeah, I'm just an ambitious person that has always been ambitious, always believed there is more to life than what I have, and I've always strived to be the better version of myself.
Yeah. And it's so important what you're saying, because a lot of our youth, you know, they find themselves sometimes stuck in circumstantial situations. And I like what you said, it is a mindset, whether it be poverty, whether it be richness, whether it be education or not. It really is that frame of mind and that mindset that you have that can propel you out of anything. Your circumstances are there, but if your mindset allows you to fit and mold into that circumstance, then it's so hard to break out from it.
Yeah, it is, and it's a situation where you have to accept that you are dealt some cards when you come into life, and there's nothing you can do about them. But what you do for yourself in the future, if you have to look back 5 years and say, did I do enough to move myself forward? Yes, given the circumstances. But it's a mindset, like you're saying. Keep yourself above water and say, this is who I'm going to be, irrespective of where I am. Because the bigger challenge a lot of youth have is that they allow the environment to influence who they should be. So just because I'm born in a rural area doesn't mean I can't become a tech expert. It doesn't. I can become a tech expert from the rural area because I'm going to continuously frame my thinking that I'm a tech expert. Even if there's antenna where I stay, I'm going to find ways to be introduced. It might be harder than others, but at least you will still succeed.
And Julius, in my upbringing, we all have a variety, and even a lot of the youth that I work with, including myself, and I'm gonna be honest here. Sometimes there's so much of anger. My sister actually told me at one point, you're gonna let your anger destroy you and everyone around you and everything you worked with, because we can get so angry, whether it be at circumstances, whether it be at politics, whether it be at white capitalism, whether it be at capitalism at all. You get so angry. Has that happened to you?
Funny enough, I had a recent interview with another publication where we spoke about the impact of struggle on a human's character. And the education system, for example, it idolizes people that goes from zero to hero. The zero to hero struggle is good, but it also has a challenge in that it creates angry people. It's too hard for certain things. You develop anger. Because in strength, there's also a lot of fear. A lot of people push harder because they're afraid of something else. So a lot of people don't succeed because of passion. They succeed because they are running away from something. So there is that. So anger is alive, and anger, you have to forgive yourself for things you go through. And it's not really about forgiving other people. For me, it's more about forgiving yourself, because if I look back at how I became successful, there are a lot of things where you had to sacrifice so much, and you have to tell yourself that it's over now. Just accept that it happened to you, and maybe the least you can do is make sure it doesn't happen to somebody else. But you don't have to make that define you. So that sometimes you have very angry, successful people, and you wonder, how can you be so successful and still be angry? It's because they still, that the way they became successful had a very negative psychological impact on them. Some people were physically abused, some people were psychologically abused, some people just didn't have enough. I mean, I grew up in a tin house, walked 50 minutes to go to school, didn't have lunch on some of the days. I can choose to be angry at those things.
Yes.
So and some of the others we have because they've had to work hard for success. That's all they can teach. If they find a happy child, they get angry. They think you're hateful just because you're happy. Because they believe to succeed, you must be angry, determined. And it's because they haven't forgiven themselves for what they went through. You must forgive yourself so that you don't give the other people your anger. Give them the bright side of you. So I agree with you. There is a level of anger, and it goes worse if you didn't make it. Sometimes you fight, you don't make it. So if the successful people are still angry, imagine the unsuccessful ones. They keep that anger forever. So it's an issue of forgiving yourself, and I think we don't talk about that enough.
And that self journey, I guess, for me, it really hit home when my sister said, and until I was not willing to introspect, like you're saying, within me, I have to heal within me so I don't spew it out. And that is so key. So wrapping onto that, what motivates you? You spoke about fear sometimes driving us. So what is it that drives you and motivates you to achieve and go on to the next level and the next?
And motivations change as you grow, and so I think the first part of my life, it was fear, because I knew I can't go back to poverty. There was no option, So I was running away from something for the better part of my career, going to varsity, doing articles, writing board exams, all of that was more motivated around, I am not going back to that place. So the day I got my CA, that's when Now I wasn't running away from anything. Now you needed something else to motivate you. And that is why sometimes professionals, I say, you need to redefine the motivator, because you might settle if you don't change it. So you might think, no, I'm a certified internal auditor, I'm a chartered accountant, I'm a CFO, I'm done. Because your motivator was running away. So for the bigger part of my life, it was running away from poverty. But I think once I qualified as a professional and started having to do what I thought I could do, I needed something else to motivate me. So yeah, at this point, my motivator is human development. I strongly believe in the power of human beings to change the world completely. And that human beings are actually way better than we give them credit for. They can do. There are people that just need you to believe in them.
Yes.
And I want to be that person that shows people that I believe in them and allow them to do probably what I did with my career for themselves, not just in professional, but in personal life, because I got where I am because somebody believed I can succeed.
Yes.
And now the drive is to say, how can I reach people through what I do? And that keeps me going, because I feel like if you can get people, there's very few things that will ever give you the level of satisfaction than seeing somebody else succeed. Very little.
So true, so true. And it is that belief in ourselves as humans, and as we're taught and as we grow, we forget and we lose ourselves sometimes in everything that we do. And it's so important to have individuals like yourself to reignite that belief in whatever it is that you may want to, but
Yes.
it's there. It's there.
The one thing I say is we don't want anyone here that's a photocopy of somebody else, because otherwise we're gonna get bored. So if you, I don't want people, I'm not trying, when I motivate people, I don't motivate them so that they can be like me.
Yeah.
I motivate them so that they can go inside themselves and find who they should be, so that I can also stand up and clap for them for succeeding in their own way.
Exactly.
I succeeded in my own way. There might be people that want to succeed the way I did, but my motivation is not to say, follow what I did. No, it's find your path. Yes. And become the best. And that's, for me, unleashing human potential at this point is probably my biggest driver, my biggest motivation.
And to what you're saying, it's so important, because our society has defined success as you have to become the CFO somewhere, or the CEO, or you need that JSE listed job. And success is not necessarily defined in, everyone can't be a CEO and everyone can't be a CFO.
And everyone does not need to be a CEO. Everyone does not need to be a CFO. And for me, when you've reached true success, you smile in your sleep. Exactly. Now you know you are successful, because no one is watching you, but you feel happy.
Already.
And if you can give that to somebody else, I think that's the biggest gift anyone can give. You can make somebody a CEO, a CFO, but if being that does not make them smile in their sleep, they have not succeeded. They've succeeded for you. They've done what you want them to do. Yeah. Personally, they've not reached it. So,
exactly. And that's why conversations like this are so important to what I do, because we need to show the youth, even individuals like ourselves, where we may define, sometimes you sit in and think, I've achieved everything, but why am I still not happy?
Yes.
Why am I still not successful for me? Maybe I've made my parents proud, or my community, or my mentors. And I want to unpack real conversations like this so people can see it isn't all about just that title.
And sometimes when I do motivational talks, I say a sentence that probably some of the delegates think, okay, this might be wrong. But I say, you have to be selfish if you want to really inspire other people. And I give them example. I say, look at the people you admire the most. They focused on themselves, and we love them for having given themselves attention, not for giving us attention.
Yes.
I mean, this guy just gets on stage and we go crazy. He doesn't even know us. But we are inspired by the fact that they took time to focus on their craft, on themselves. Okay. So sometimes the best thing you can do for other people is to do more for yourself, so that you can give them hope that if he can work hard so much on himself and become the best, or if she can become the best, it means if I focus on myself, I'll also become the best.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's for me, it's more about allowing them to know that they can also be the best. It's not, and that's the spirit of motivation.
Yes.
To say we love people that love themselves. No one loves somebody that doesn't love themselves.
Exactly.
So sometimes, parents, I'm sure would agree more. We sometimes resent parents that like telling us they sacrifice their life for us.
Mm.
We're like, who said you should?
Yes.
Why didn't you travel the world? Get us a nanny or somebody.
Yes.
And you say, no, but I left everything for you. But what did you teach them? That we must leave everything for everyone? That's all they're taking from it. But if you went out there and became the best that you are, they can look at it and go like, okay, that's how you do this. Yeah, there's going to be casualties in between. You might not see your kids every week. You might not do this, but you followed your dream. And if your kids are your passion, that's good. Do it. But don't sacrifice it completely and then blame the kids later in life. Exactly. To say, I couldn't, if it wasn't of the two of you, I would be the CEO. No, go be the CEO.
Exactly.
So,
because again, kids want the happy parents, right? What do you say? You should have done it. At least you would have been happy and I would have been happy. We wouldn't have both been miserable.
Yeah. And then now your siblings and nephews and nieces, they admire this other one that all of you in the family are convinced is not the right one. Because they look at them and they see this person prioritize themselves. Exactly. When they come into the house, everyone lights up because they're happy. And you go like, yeah, he's irresponsible, she's irresponsible, she left her kids, she did this, but she's successful. She's happy. And people can see it. Precisely. You have been there, but you're unhappy because you chose the wrong path. So it's so important for us to look at ourselves and realize that we can only inspire others by being the best version of ourselves. Mm-hmm. And if you're not the best version of yourself, you don't have to give kids motivation. They can see it. They can see it. I would rather say nothing and let them look at me and think, that looks like something I'd like to do. Then they will come and ask me, how did you do it? Yes. So there's so much verbal motivation. There isn't enough demonstrative motivation. Demonstrate what we mean when we say be passionate. So for me, even if I said little, but just became that inspiration that somebody. When I grew up, I had posters of people in my room, karate people, because I was a karate fan. Those people didn't know me, but they don't know how much they inspired me to do things. Yes. By just being the best version of themselves. Yes. They've allowed me to have something to look up to. Correct. I would reach more people with motivation by doing that, than by talking to them.
Very true. And that brings me to something that, who were your role models and who inspired Julius at the different phases in your life? Because I'm sure that has also evolved as you have grown to evolve.
Yeah, I think I've had a lot of the people that inspire me. Media has been very influential. I think most of us have always, because around me there wasn't many people I could look at and say, I want to be like this uncle, or there weren't doctors on the table at the dinner table. There weren't accountants at the house party or anything. Yes. It was uncles working at a factory and all that. So there wasn't really much to go about around. But my interest in reading, media, TV, that gave me motivation, because when I watched movies, I could see myself in some of the role players. When I read books, I could see myself in some of those. So I think probably more media motivation and reading books has played a bigger part than individuals. Because I have not had close contact with many individuals while growing up that have done what I want to do. Yes. So I think TV played a very big role. Reading played a big role, and that's how I started building a human. So you take pieces of a lot of people. You You see, I like how this one does that. I like how this one does this. I like how this one handles being under pressure. And you put together you,
Yes.
which I actually think that's how role modeling should work. You should take beats off a lot of people and create a you out of it. And that worked wonders for me, I think.
Yes. And it's so key, you get a lot of youngsters saying, I can't afford a coach, or like you said, there's no one in my community or in my society or within my family that I can look up to. But that is not the only way. It may be the highly publicized way, but that is not the only way. And if I had to give you an hour with, I'm currently reading John Sane. So if I had to give you an hour where John Sane will coach you versus the 3 books that he's written where he talks internally about him and who shaped him, what will you pick?
Yeah. So those books, they make a huge difference. They make a huge difference. I mean, I enjoy watching documentaries. Famous artists. The most recent one I finished was Whitney. The story about Whitney Houston and the demise, the rise, and all those things. And there's so much you learn by just watching that documentary, and you realize how fame affects people. But the most important point is where they come from and how they completely change their lives. Sometimes we look at these guys and we think they were born with a silver spoon. They are not. Normal people like us. I follow heavyweight boxers to see how they were raised. I was looking at the story of Evander Holyfield, and you realize that these guys are from projects, which we call townships here, and they come from projects in America, and these guys were basically part of the social system. They were taken care of by government. But then one day, heavyweight champion of the world, and you take so much out of them. So, like you say, you don't necessarily have to find a person. You can watch TV, you can read books. That same level of motivation will come through.
Exactly. I mean, I think this is a great question here to follow up what we're discussing. How would you say young professionals can make inroads where they can create impact and, shape our society and help to transform it for the visions that they have? I mean, youngsters are very vocal. Whether they have the burning passion or anger or love, it's a lot more heightened at that point. So what advice would you have for them where they can actually take that and use it to benefit society and help transform to the vision that they have? They're our future leaders. So, they need to know how. What would you say?
Yeah, I think I feel for us young people at this point, because we have got some challenges that stop us from achieving true success. So somebody has pretended to define success for us, and they've said it's fame, and that's why a lot of young people, everything they do must be known. You see, and what I'm saying is, let the results be known, not the work. So that's the advice I can give to young people, to say, do enough work such that by the time people notice you, that's the results. It's not the work.
Yes.
So we celebrate work too much. That actually ends up not achieving any results. We celebrate startups. We celebrate, but there are young people that have actually built 50 million rand businesses. Those are the guys that's the results starting to show. Let's help them. So I would say to young people, try as much as possible and hide your work until the results come up, and focus more on, because work changes you as a person.
Yes.
Work changes you as a person. Sometimes you might not even get the results, but by having done the work, it changes you. So the Nike slogan is, just do it. And there's so much platforms for talking, and I feel like we are consumed with talking. So young people will go on social media and say, yeah, the education system is bad, but how many of us are in a school helping, in an actual school? Yeah. Yeah, we don't like townships. There isn't enough sporting activities. There isn't that. How many of us are in a township running a soccer club?
Yeah.
So those are the kinds. So I'm saying before you even waste time complaining, go do something. Pick an NPO and get involved as a volunteer. Pick a football club. Pick a township. Pick a girl child and mentor them. Done. And don't say anything about it. You know, because that is what media has done to us. We have been made to think that we're supposed to showcase all the work we do. We don't have to. Yeah. So I think what I would give, the advice I would give to say, if you want to make a difference, get involved, get your hands dirty. There is no substitute for that. And there's so much wisdom you get with experience.
Yes.
Knowledge can give you intellect. You might know what the right things to say, but experience gives you wisdom.
Correct.
You might even know when to say nothing.
Yeah. So, and it's amazing how that plays out in boardrooms, as I'm sure you've seen. There are many a times when I sit and think I do everything, I give everything to my CFO, and you know, I'm in there, and when the fire comes and the way that they respond, and like you're saying, sometimes they're silent and I want to say something, but I mean, you know, you don't, and you realize that is experience talking. Exactly. And afterwards you realize the importance of not having said something, even though you could.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's really that. And for young people, I think we need to be the generation of doers. We've had lip service generations, you know, aspirational generations. Let's do this. We can do it. Yeah, we're done motivating us now. Yes. Let's go do it. And whatever we see in society, I always say, don't try and solve everything. Pick your own. If we all picked our struggle, you know, I've picked my struggle. My struggle for me is enhancing the quality of basic education. Simple. You know, that's my struggle on the side. Say, I will do whatever needs to be done. That's why I donate to Save the Children South Africa, because they make sure that a child that is an orphan can still go to school.
Yes.
They make sure that those families, they deliver food to those families that are often the child-headed households. They do that. For me, that is a support mechanism to basic education.
Yes.
You know, we've got an NPO doing extra lessons. That's the kind of people I want to support them. I want to be there and make sure that the governance of that organization is good so that it can be sustainable. You know, YCAP they build social leaders. You know, they take kids from the school, they give them projects, they solve problems in their community. That's basic education, because for me, basic education is not the matric certificate. It's who you become when you finish matric, not what you get.
Yes.
So yeah, so I think, and somebody can pick a struggle. Maybe your struggle is around women equality, making sure that women are treated exactly the same way, girls are treated the same way as boys. Pick that struggle. Go into schools and challenge any policy that makes it impossible for girls to succeed. Make it your mission. If you think sports is big, go start a soccer club. Join. All I'm saying is just do something.
Okay. Yes. Yes. And if we all did our part, like you're saying, we could all celebrate, because it's the ripple waves, right, that create the impact that you need. And if we all muster on that, and that brings me to the next thing I want to discuss with you, change. As humans, we are creatures of habit. We hate change. It's uncomfortable. We don't want to, but to succeed at every different element, why should I stop complaining when it's so comfortable for me to just sit here and just complain and not get involved? And for me to change, put in the actions, and at every step as you grow, change is inevitable. So how do you embrace it, and what advice do you have for people going through this change transformations?
I think change, being able to embrace change is to be able to embrace the why of change, you know, and to say, why do we need change? Why do we need change? Every day we are trying to make other people change so that they fit us, but we don't want to change. You know, so it's like, yeah, you know, people are like this. I wish they would have been a little better. But also the environment as well moves, and it requires that we change. And I think this is a cliche, but we always say change is the only constant. Yeah. That's the only thing that's here, change. things are going to change. And becoming being a student of life helps you accept change. So you are here to learn. You are learning everywhere. You know, and that also helps you respect everyone. Everyone has a good opinion. Like, you can meet somebody you thought knows nothing about your work. You sit with them for coffee for an hour, and you wonder, how did they look at it that way? They don't even have a degree. They don't have metric, but they sat down and they literally told you something very wise. So I think accepting change is, for starters, to be able to say change is the only constant. It's the only thing that we have that's not gonna change. It's change itself. Yes. And just realize that you are a student of life as well. And that also helps a lot, because especially as professionals, they were trying to embrace the concept of lifelong learning. So can't be a lifelong learner that does not embrace change. You can't. Because a lifelong learner will be excited by change, not threatened by change. And yeah, so I think the need to arrive is the one that's affecting our ability to accept change. Because it's as if we want to retire at some point while we are still working. Like, we must get here and everything must stop changing.
Yeah.
You know, I've worked so hard, don't change it.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I've read the standards. Now you're changing them.
Yes.
Like, this guy's just ripped me off of my 7 years of studying, and overnight I'm no longer an expert. I mean, I'm sure the guy who saw a car, who was a master at riding horses, got very angry. Because he was like, I mean, I spent so many years investing in being the best horse rider, and now they just buy a car and this person just has to sit down and this thing moves. Now they're thinking, I feel useless. But at that point, they could have said, I'm actually the one in the most advantage, because the car actually is an enhancement of the mode of transport. I should be the one leading that change, because I already know where we come from.
Exactly.
So when new things happen, the people that are already in the system, if they accept lifelong learning and are willing to unlearn and relearn, they actually stand a better chance of adapting to the new realities that you have, because new systems also fail.
Yeah.
Now, when you changed from an old system to a new system, it means you continue having a backup. People that know only the new system have no backup.
Exactly.
If that system falls down, they put their hands on the head. For you, you go back to the old system and make it work quickly while you're fixing this new one. So it works out. Yes. You know, I mean, I'm sure kids now, shame, they can't think with their own brain. When you still studied, they taught you manual formulas of mathematics.
Yes.
And the calculator came in and Google rocked up. But now, if we stuck in a room and there's a calculation that has to be done, you'll probably be able to do it still, even if everything went off.
Yeah. Yeah.
So for me, being the one affected by the change is not a bad thing. It means you have a backup.
Yes.
The ones that only came in the change don't have a backup.
Exactly.
And you see now when Wi-Fi is off.
Yes.
What happens? There are people that have never lived in a no Wi-Fi area. So you know, when there's no Wi-Fi, what did I do before Wi-Fi? You go do it. Whatever it is you were doing before Wi-Fi existed, you do it.
Exactly.
And then the kids feel like the world has turned around. Like, what are we supposed to do now?
Yes.
We can talk. No, we can't. We can just sit and talk. Well, that's what we did all the time before Wi-Fi.
Exactly.
So change for me is to accept it. You need to realize it's the only constant, but also realize that you have a head start when you are there when the change happens.
Exactly. That is such a great perspective, because sometimes we sit so long in denial, we lose that advantage that we actually have.
Yeah.
And it's
now
so
you've got
important.
new people that don't have a background right in the new systems. You know, and then they miss big parts of the old system. They don't do the migration right, because they were never the old system was working.
Exactly.
So it's just a new system, use it, but it forgot very basic elements of the old system.
Yes.
It was not the whole system that was bad, we changed it. So how do you do this? How do we make it better? How, you know, it's just, if you look at the schooling system, we're like, yeah, we want the learners to be free, but there's still a fundamental value of family. There's still a role for family to play. Yes. Education at school can never replace that. So when you have a parent that moves to the new education system, it means they know how to appreciate the value of family, but also appreciate the value of the new system. Now you've got a new person that just thinks the school can replace the family. You've got a problem.
Yes. I see you have a lovely bookshelf there, Julius. If you had to recommend one book for non-readers or anyone, one that time and again you think of to say, this was life-changing in whichever phase of your life, but we always have as readers one book that you say, if you don't read anything else except this, yep, which one would it be?
Personality Plus, you know, and that's one of the books. Let me see, in far. Personality Plus. There we go. Actually, I've got two versions of the same book. So this is the Personality Plus book. So there's one which is really more around at the personal level, and there's a version for work-related stuff.
Okay.
So Personality Plus is written by Florence. Her surname is a little difficult to pronounce, but the book defines personalities of four. It divides people into four personalities, but it says how to understand others by understanding yourself. This is life-changing stuff, because here you start wondering, now I know why my dad used to act like that. Yes. It makes sense now. Because there's so much in our personalities that we don't appreciate enough. There are people in meetings, only if you appreciated their personality, you will know that being quiet is not they're not being rude. It's not because they don't like you that they are quiet. They are just quiet people. There's been a lot of knowledge around human behavior, like introverts, extroverts. You know, we've tried to categorize people into a lot, but I feel like this book takes it to another level. Okay. Yeah, so that's, for me, if there's one book I would recommend, and it's not a book you're gonna read and finish. It's a book you're gonna keep. It's like those reference books. You're gonna read it once, and at the beginning it's got an assessment so that you can categorize yourself, so that you know where you fit in and which other personalities are likely to connect with you, which ones are likely to have fights with you. Yes. And then you can recognize when you've met that personality. Yes. Say, okay, because this one we are naturally likely to fight. Yes. It means I might have to take a different approach in dealing with them. Yes. And the other ones you are most likely to connect. There is no need to do anything. There are people you just meet and the two of you just hit it off. And you're like, yes, I feel like I've known you for 10 years. Yes. But it's because they are a certain personality. And those two personalities connect. The other personalities just repel. They just don't like each other. Yeah. The tone of your voice makes them sick. You know? Yes. Yeah, like, oh, this lady, can't she just stop talking? And then there are those ones that will just look at you and go like, wow, Fatima, continue talking. Yes. You know? But you have to be able to, so that in the first few engagements with a person, you might not be correct completely in classifying them, but at least it gives you something to work with. True. And at least most of the time you might be right. Exactly. So it gives you something to work with. Maybe you'll categorize them wrong for the first month, but after 2 months, they'll go to the right category, and you will know, this one, do I budge into their office or do I call first? Yes. Do I text them or do I call them? Yes. And that makes such a difference when you use the right medium, right? Sometimes I prefer a phone call. I hate emails, Julius. And some people don't understand. And then they're like, but when that one phoned you, it was different. I'm emailing you. And you realize then it's my personality preference, which is just that. Yes, yes. So yeah, some people like that. Why did you text me? Why couldn't you just call? And then some people say, why didn't you just text? Why did you have to call? So for me, Personality Plus is a game changer. You know, you read Personality Plus, it makes you know more about yourself, but I like the fact that it also makes you know more about other people and appreciate them more. And yeah, it's actually, for me, that's the book I would say. It's not just a professional book.
Yes.
Because there is also part where you learn about relationships.
Yes.
A lot of relationships end because of lack of appreciation of the different personalities. So this could save your relationship. It could save your kids. They come with different temperaments. So it's got temperaments. So
yes.
There's a child that is a certain way. There's a child that's very happy. And as parents, we try to be fair by treating all kids the same way. And we cannot be more unfair.
Exactly. Exactly. Thank you for sharing. Well, I don't have that, and I'm an avid reader, so I'm going to be going and ordering that. And I've also enjoyed that because, Julius, in our learnings, we're so technical driven. We're not taught anything about human behavior, personalities, communication, leadership. We are taught only audits, numbers, IFRS, and we realize a big part, even during articles, how easy would our life have been if we had something like that, right?
Yes. Actually, we don't invest enough time in soft skills. I mean, yeah, and it's key. What we have managed to do at this point when I arrived at the institute is we've now basically created a monthly career webinar. That's just focused on soft skills. We've just recently finished the one on assertiveness.
Yes.
To say that is the secret weapon for successful career people.
Yes.
You are never going to succeed without career assertiveness.
Yes.
Nowhere in the technical work do they teach you assertiveness. You know?
Exactly.
But and then we say, but once you become assertive, that creates conflict. It means you need conflict management. So our next webinar is about conflict management. But to be able to deal with conflict, you need confidence.
Yes.
The next, so we literally have now reserved one session a month just to the soft skills, nothing else, because there is nothing. Achieving success is actually more about soft skills than the technical skills.
Yes.
The technical skills are like when you are baking, those stuff you put on top, the cherries on top, that's technical skills.
Yes.
The whole base is soft skills.
Very true. Well, that brings us, I've received a number of questions from my different followers and people who are quite excited. I mean, I'm not sure we're going to get to everything, but let's start with, this was a question from Zahira Adam, and she's asking, how do you balance the ambition of young leaders who have appetite for aggressive growth and a dreamer vision with that of a more mature leader who is wiser and cautious? And do you come across these challenges when sitting at a boardroom table? I thought it was such a great question.
Yeah, no, I can tell you that's a struggle for many, and it's a bigger struggle for young people because of media as well. Remember, media introduces us to a world that we didn't know, and that is why we're impatient by nature now. We want things to happen, so sometimes you get into the boardroom and then you are trying to get your decision across.
Yes.
And and so my advice is always to say, no one is gonna pay you to test your ideas. You have to go test them yourself. You want to be able to move forward. Young people can make them a favor by testing their own ideas at their own expense. And this goes to something one of the entrepreneur coaches, Busi Tembewaya, always says that don't come to me with a business plan to look for money. Come to me with a business that works to look for money to expand on the business.
Yes.
So for the young people, we need to realize that people are not going to pay us to test our ideas. People are not going to agree with us just because our ideas are good. People want to see results. So if you think having afternoon classes at a public school would make a difference to the results, yes, before you go petitioning for that to become a formal structure, go have one yourself.
Yes.
And then come with results and say, I've taken 4 learners. For the past year, we've had extra classes twice a week, and look at what happened. They were here, now they're here. Very few people can argue with results. But ideas, they are there to be argued with. So I think there's a lot of, we want to press for progress, but we must test our ideas. We need to learn to test our ideas before we pitch them. Make sure we test them. So if we want to test it, we say everyone should be having a mentor. Go get a mentee as well.
Yes.
That's the system. Meet with them 4 months. You might find that after the third meeting, you go like, this is not working. Oh, I'm not going to even tell anyone about it.
Yes. Exactly.
So we have to learn to test ideas ourselves at our expense.
Yeah.
And then pitch results. So we need to move from pitching ideas to pitching results, so that it's more about massifying the results than testing the ideas.
Yes.
So yeah, and that will also, because then you will fail 10 times before you come with the 11th idea. But the 10th one will work, and people won't even know about the other 10 that failed.
Correct.
So we have to get ideas, find a way to test them, and when we stand in front of other people and say, let's make it big, test the results first.
And you can talk on that. Great advice. The next one comes from Etienne Keshav, and I thought it was quite interesting, his take. He's saying, in light of COVID, many businesses are suffering. If in a position to retrench, how would you approach it?
I think retrenchment for me is probably the very, very last resort step. I don't think it's, because the numbers are controlled by a lot of factors, and reducing cost is not the first factor. And I think retrenchment is a cost reduction model.
Yes.
And cost reduction can also affect your sustainability as an organization. So I would say a business should find ways to expand its offering rather than reduce it. So add a product line. That's it. Add a product line. Add a client profile that you didn't appeal to. So let's say, for example, you only catered to auditing people. Maybe add accounting as a product line. Only catered for males. Add a product line for females. And then use the staff members there. Sure. So I think as a business leader, our role is to find the opportunities, not to retrench people.
And to change the narrative, like you're saying, because the cost reduction is a very ancient one. Anything and anytime anything happens, Julius, what do they say? Exactly.
No, that's not the one. Increase the opportunities for working. Reskill people. If you say, let's say, for example, your admin staff, you don't need HR people anymore. Reskill them into the call center side. Let them go and answer calls. They already have the history of the business. So when the customers call, they can, they can. So for me, that should really only be a discussion, very much towards the end. The business must change to fit the employees. So for me, it's that as a leader, you don't achieve results through people. You achieve people through results. There's a big difference.
Yes.
Your success is not determined by how you achieve the results. It's how you use the results to achieve the people. So if you retrench people, you've lost them. We didn't achieve people. So we need to find a way. I think business needs to reach a level where we realize we've got a much bigger social responsibility to reach people, not just results.
Yes.
Business is about the people. And retrenchment for me is not really one of those options we can even start talking about first. Let's start talking about opportunities for the business. If you are just South African based, can't you expand into Africa? Isn't there a country in Africa that might need your services?
Exactly.
If you were only in Gauteng, is there no opportunity to then create a branch in Mpumalanga?
Yes.
If you were only into poultry, isn't there a chance to maybe use part of the farm because the chickens are not moving as fast? Let's create maybe vegetable gardening. So we have that responsibility as business to always look for ways to expand the offering to accommodate people. And that's a bigger one. I think the narrow focus on profits at the expense of everything has really created a very bad taste in the mouth for a lot of people when it comes to business.
And history has shown us it's not the answer, because otherwise we wouldn't be cost cutting and retrenching for time immemorial. It's not the answer. It's not the answer. True. We have another one from Sydney, and the surname, I may say it wrong, so my apologies. Sydney Mchayise. He says our country lacks intent, or rather strategic implementation of ideas. To mitigate this underlying weakness, what do you think would be the best approach to improve?
I think our country has got a few challenges, and I think ideas is not one of them. You know, we have an abundance of ideas. So the one challenge I feel like this country has is government. I feel like is doing a lot of work. Not enough, but government is doing a lot of work. Business, not enough, but doing a lot of work. Civil society, unfortunately, I can't say the same for them. Because there is a big component, the dependency on government is actually costing us a lot. We go to communities, government is doing stuff communities should be doing for themselves. Government should not be running a soccer club in any township. We already have leaders there, we already have parents of kids there. Government should not be keeping law and order in a school. No. Parents must go there and take charge of that school. There will be no drugs in our school. Now government must hire more police to go police a school. That's a failure on civil society side. It's not a government failure. That we need more police in places police shouldn't even be going. Why do we need police to go to schools? You know, why do we need government to come and start basic things in communities? Why don't we have community gatherings anymore, where we meet and we solve problems in the community? So I feel like they say, so the three-party relationship for me is government, which must make sure that we get basic services. You know, the legislation is written properly, judiciary is working, all those things are working. And then we need business that must make sure that there's jobs, people are working. But civil society still has to take care of itself. They cannot, now civil society has now given their responsibility either to the employers or to government. Simple. When we sit down, it's either we blame the employer or we blame the government. It's never us.
So true.
We go to the community, there's litter everywhere. Why are community cleanup initiatives not a norm? To clean our own community. Government, we don't have to hire people to come clean our community. We can then hold them accountable to do something better with that money. Exactly. And so we're cleaning our community already. Don't clean the bars, we'll do it.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
Like now, I say to schools, we have a big pool of people receiving social grants in communities. But the schools are still hiring people to go and clean the schools. But we have people sitting at home receiving social grants in that same community. But the school is paying somebody to cut the grass, to clean the windows. Why hasn't that community created a roster or a schedule? So this week, these 5 families will clean the windows. Next week, 5 families will do that. Self-manage.
Yes.
So the same way the government has organized itself, business has organized itself, civil society must organize itself. And I feel like that is the other leg we have not unleashed. And when you unleash civil society, you reduce pressure on business and government. And you also build an educated and aware civil society that can hold government accountable. Our bigger challenge at this point is that people are voting without thinking. Because civil society has not educated itself. A political party is not going to come and teach the right political system. They will teach you a political system that suits them.
Yes.
What happened to just teaching politics as a concept? Civil society must do that. The NPOs, they must go teach people politics as a normal concept. So now we leave it up to politicians to teach us politics. They're going to teach us their politics, not politics.
Precisely.
So definitely. So I think South Africa and probably a lot of places in the world. We are suffering from a lack of participation and standing up by civil society itself. The ordinary men and women on the street are not standing up. We only stand up under the umbrella of something. It's not gonna happen. We don't need a political party to stand up. We don't need an employer to stand up. We can stand up on our own and make changes in our community. And when government comes, let's not wait for a pothole to be there for 2 months. Let's come together, go to government, make a proposal, make sure that pothole is filled. If there's no soccer, some of us as parents have done soccer before. Let's get them to start coaching a small soccer team. Then we can go to government later to want rights to use land. But the soccer team is already there.
Yes, it is that call to action. You're so right. We're so stuck, Julius, in a limbo of complaining and not wanting change. Your community, start with your neighborhood, and I'm also guilty of that, because it's inbred in us, right? You have a dinner party and it's just so easy to join in, and I'm guilty of that myself. So from this, I am now going to challenge at every dinner party that I have and at every forum that I sit with. These are our complaints. So what one action, as small as it can be, can we take to try and change the narrative? Because it starts with us. And government, we can't hold them accountable because it's so muddy right now. And if we start doing our bit, like you are saying, they can't fool us, because we know what's going on in our community and we know what we're doing and we know what we want. You're not going to come and tell us what is it that we want. We know.
And I'm saying professionals, for example, my challenge to professionals is, if at this point you have a struggle and you are not financially involved in making it a success, it's not going to be a success. NPOs don't run from, they are like businesses. And that's why I'm so interested in getting professionals to pick a cause they believe in and give it money. I don't want to say here and lie and say motivation alone is going to work. It's not. Big organizations are built from financial resources. If we believe that communities must be developed, each and every professional must be donating money to an NPO. So that's the only way we're going to build that other leg. Because those NPOs that must go educate, so that they are not dependent on the same businesses and politicians for funding. Because if the business and politicians give them money, they're going to ask them to say their message.
Exactly.
Let's give them our money so that they can say our message.
Exactly.
He who pays the piper calls the tune.
Yes. Yeah. And it's a way that we can hold, because when you spend the money, you want to know what your money is also doing.
Yes, you're going to want financial statements.
Exactly. That automatically drives your involvement, because you've spent the money, right? And none of us like to let it go and waste, and you don't know what has happened with what it is that you've worked hard for. So
the biggest challenge I hear from professionals is, how do I know my money is going to be spent well? I say, donating is not an option. Holding them accountable is another story.
Exactly.
Commit to say, I'm going to give somebody my money, but I'll give the one that meets the following criteria. But giving the money should not be a choice.
Exactly.
You must give it because it's needed.
Exactly.
And then that will automatically, one of the books I read from Robert Kiyosaki is that if you want to accelerate your learning, put your money.
Yes. Yes.
When you will learn stuff that you would have learned in 3 years in 30 minutes. Because your money is involved.
Exactly.
Once you want to, where your money is, your learning accelerates. Exactly. If you put money into an NPO, you're going to know very quickly about that NPO.
Yes. Exactly.
So I say commit to putting in money, that will accelerate your learning.
Very true. Well, Julius, there were so many other things I wanted to chat to you about, but our hour is up. And just in this time, I mean, for myself, I've taken certain key things, that we should work on. And I'm sure that many others will also. So I'd like to thank you for your time. Thank you for all that you do, and continue to do you, like you've said, so we can all watch and be inspired. And thank you again for working with me to ensure that I also get an opportunity to launch something that could, even if we make a difference in 1 or 2 people's lives, like you've said, for me, that will say that this has been a success of this journey that we've taken on.
There is not enough motivation going around, so this project is certainly going to make a big difference. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. And I wish you a very great day further. And I'm sure that we will have many more conversations. And I look forward to them. Thank you, Julius.
Thank you. Thanks for hosting me. Thank you.